Spin is glad to introduce you CR-4, the new testing bench for common rail pumps and injectors. Common rail system appeared for the first time on a vehicle in 1997. The vehicle in subject was an Alfa Romeo 156 with Bosch components. The wide diffusion of diesel in these last years, due also to the introduction of common rail and the continuous request from the market, has persuaded Spin in the projecting of a common rail test bench. CR-4 allows to execute the diagnosis and the cleaning of injectors and pumps of passenger cars. CR-4 can test Bosch, Siemens, Delphi, Nippon Denso systems. The bench is supplied with all necessary accessories, which we will see later in details, to test systems of the different brands. Let's see how a common rail system works. The difference between a petrol injection system and common rail system is the working pressure. If a petrol injection system works with low pressures, a common rail system can work with pressures even higher than 1500 bar. In order to open the nozzle of the injector is necessary high voltage, like 80 volt, and high current, like 20 ampere. However, these two elements are not enough by themselves to open the nozzle. For this reason, this system is studied in order to use the pressure self of the injector for the opening of the nozzle. The fuel flows into the injector through the point indicated by the arrow, then it flows into a chamber indicated by the number 7, which is more visible in the picture at your left-hand side. After that, the fuel flows through a small channel, going to the second small chamber, indicated by the number 8. The opening of the nozzle happens in this way. When the pulse reaches the coil of the injector, the little sphere indicated by the number 5 rises up by clearing the small discharging channel. In this way, the channel is cleared by pressure. The pressure inside the little chamber number 8 will be enough to push upward the shaft, indicated by the number 1 in the picture. In this way, the nozzle is open and it allows the delivery of fuel into the combustion chamber. When the pulse stops, the little sphere moves downward at its original position by closing the discharging channel. Then, the chamber 7 will be refilled by fuel and the nozzle will be reclosed. Now we show you the accessories supplied with the bench. 4 cable adapters for Delphi injectors, 3 spacers and connection pipe for Delphi pumps, 3 connecting pipes for Bosch, Delphi and Siemens, 4 flexible hoses 12 per 14 and 4 flexible hoses 14 per 14. These are high-pressure hoses, around 2000 bar, with very high flexible capability. Four connection rubber tubes for return of injectors, 1 flange and 1 plate for some pumps such as Mercedes, Hyundai and Fiat. One cable for external connection of injectors to execute the test with a manual pump with the use of the simulator of the bench. 1 4-liter ultrasonic tank with heating and 1 can of washing fluid. Let's see the parts of the bench. We start from the simulator, which is composed by a display and a keypad for the setting of all parameters. there are 8 graduated burettes for the test of 4 injectors. For each injector, we will have the possibility to check the delivery and the return capacity. For that, we talk about the motor of the bench. It is a 3 kW motor which pulls the pump for rotation. At the lowest part of the bench, we have a gauge showing the pressure at the inlet of the common rail pump. At the right-hand side, there are 3 warning lights which indicate the correct power supply of the bench, that is, the 3 phases. The other warning light eventually indicate that the motor is disarmed because of the block of the common rail pump. A 3-position selector is for the selection of the clockwise or anti-clockwise rotation of the pump. At the rear side of the bench, we find the panel for the access to the bench. And a 10-liter tank. For the correct operation, 5 liters of fluid are enough. A hose comes from the tank for the test of some types of pumps, such as Mercedes, which don't need the use of the electrical pump at the inlet. Finally, we have a fuel filter that, with another filter placed inside the bench, is the only one element that needs maintenance. The replacement of filters is required at least twice a year. As far as the fluid, it doesn't need to be replaced but just periodically refilled because it evaporates. The level of the liquid can be checked with a small transparent tube placed at one side of the tank. The bench is powered at 380 volt and it needs 3 phases, neutral and ground. For this reason, you need a 5-pole socket to work. The bench is also equipped with a CP1 Bosch pump. Now we show you how to prepare the bench to start working. Remove the 4 screws placed on the upper panel of the tank first, then drop the liquid into the tank. Reclose the panel. And open the valve located at the bottom of the tank. After, plug in. After dismounting the injectors from the vehicle, check the connection of the hoses mounting on the bench have the same thread of the injectors to be tested. Fit the injectors into the metal burettes. Then tightly screw the hoses connectors. Fit the electrical connection and then the tube of return. Once fitted and connected all injectors, close the frontal panel and start with the execution of tests. Switch on the bench and switch on the simulator. Assure that the emergency button is released. Then perform the test. Tests are performed by following 4 steps. The first one is to check the opening of nozzles at the minimum pressure, around 150-200 bar. The second one is to check the functioning of injectors at the idle speed. Parameters to be set in this case are the following: pressure 300 bar, RPM 500, injection time 1 millisecond. If the injectors properly work, the return quantity of fuel must be the same or over the delivered quantity. The third test is to check the opening of nozzle at middle speed. Parameters to be set are the following: pressure 600 bar, RPM 1500, injection time 2 milliseconds. If injectors properly work, the return quantity of fuel must be the 40–50% less than the delivered quantity. The last and third test is to check the functioning of injectors at the maximum speed. Parameters to be set are the following: pressure 900 bar, RPM 2500, injection time 3 milliseconds. To properly work, the return quantity of fuel must be the 60–70% less than the delivered quantity. The maximum tolerance between the 4 tested injectors is the 10%. Data just described are generic. On the operation manual, you will find more detailed data depending on the type of injectors. For example, in this case, the Bosch injector 0445110119, after a test of 10 minutes and with defined parameters, the delivered quantity and the returned quantity must be 40 and 40. Let's see closer the simulator. The simulator is equipped with a display and with a keypad. On the display, we see the set parameters. The type of injector, the type of pump, shut-off valve on-off, the pressure, RPM, injection time, test time. The shut-off valve is installed just on some types of pumps, for example, a Bosch pump mounted on some models of Peugeot cars. The shut-off valve is to reduce the capacity of the pump, so the consumption of fuel when big quantities of fuel are not required. The first test we are going to carry out is to check the correct opening of the nozzle at the minimum pressure. First of all, select the type of injector. In this case, select Bosch type by pushing the B key. Then select the type of pump mounted on the bench. Also in this case is a Bosch type, so push response B. The display shows Bosch injector and Bosch pump. The shut-off valve is not installed on this pump, so select off with the valve on-off key. With pressure less, set the minimum pressure at 200 bar. With the RPM key, select 750. With injection time key, select 1 millisecond. And with test time plus and minus, select 5–10 minutes. The bench is equipped with some safety micro switches that avoid the starting of the motor when one of the panels is open. The display now shows you the correct set parameters. Push Start to initiate the test. As you can notice, the first injector during the test is closed and it doesn't fill the burette. The display with pump running shows the rail's pressure. By the end of the test, push the stop key and then the drain key to activate the draining of burettes. The draining of burettes is automatic and it stops after 2 minutes or by pushing the stop key. Now let's execute the second test at the idle speed. For this test, set the pressure at 300 bar, 1 millisecond as injection time, and 500 RPM. Check that the type of injector and pump selected correspond to the type to be tested. Set the test time at 10-15 minutes and push Start to initiate the test. If injectors work properly, the returned quantity of fuel must be the same or over the delivered quantity. Another thing to check is that the delivered and the returned quantities of fuel are the same for all tested injectors. When burettes are sufficiently full of fuel, push Stop. As you can notice here, the second, third and fourth injectors have almost the same capacity. But the first one shows a delivered quantity under the average, and the returned quantity is evidently over the average. The maximum tolerance between the injectors is around the 10%. Also remind to check that all tested injectors work with the same capacity. By the end of the test, drain the burettes. When burettes are empty, push Stop. Then let's execute the third test with middle speed. Set the parameters. Pressure at 600 bar. Injection time at 2 milliseconds. RPM at 1500. Push Start and check the difference between the delivered quantity and the returned quantity. If injectors work properly, the return quantity must be the 30–50% less than the delivered quantity. The display shows the rail pressure while the pump is running. When the burettes are sufficiently full of liquid, you can press the Stop key. Also in this case, the second, third and fourth injectors have almost the same capacity, but the first one shows a delivered quantity under the average, and the returned quantity is evidently over the average. Then drain the burettes. Now we perform the last test at maximum speed. Set the injection time at 3 milliseconds, the pressure at 900 bar, the RPM at 2500. Push start to initiate the test. By the end of the test, the delivered quantity must be the 60–70% less than the delivered quantity. You can notice how, with this test, the first injector do not show the defect appeared during the first two tests. That's because of the high pressure that helps the opening of the nozzle. When all tests are finished, dismount the injectors from the bench and disassemble them with a special tool, by paying attention not to damage them. Unscrew the nozzle cap. Remove the nozzle core and check its status. Be careful not to lose the small parts of the injector. After that, perform the washing of the nozzle with the ultrasonic tank. Let's see the ultrasonic preparation. Prepare the mixture with a 95% of water and a 5% of fluid. Set the temperature at 70 degrees centigrade and let the ultrasounds working for 10 minutes in order to degas the liquid. Fit the nozzle into the plate holder and execute the washing for 15 minutes. Do not lay objects on the bottom of the tank. It's important to attentively follow the instructions reported on the manual for the use of the ultrasonic tank. Once finished the washing cycle, remove the nozzle from the tank and check the status of the nozzle's core. You can easily notice the difference of the nozzle before and after the washing. Now disassemble also the other parts and inspect them. It is possible to act on the spacer when there are opening problems at the minimum pressure, by replacing it with another of different thickness. Obviously, all tested injectors must be washed. Remount the nozzle and tighten it very well, and let's perform once again the necessary test. In this case, we perform again the test at the minimum pressure, in order to verify that all 4 injectors correctly open the nozzle. One thing to remind before dismounting the injectors from the vehicle is that they can be coded. For this reason, we suggest to number them in order to remount them at their original position by the end of the test. In case of replacement of injectors or in case they are exchanged while remounted on the vehicle, you will need to recode them with a specific auto-diagnostic instrument. Once finished the test, you can see that now, after the maintenance, all 4 injectors regularly open the nozzle. In case by the end of this test the defects will persist, it is possible to replace the nozzle or other components of injectors. There are some spare parts kits available. The most recent Siemens injectors are piezo type. They are tested by selecting the S key on the keypad. If you try to test Bosch injectors with the S program, the message error 1234 is displayed. With the CR-4, you can also test the common rail pumps, and we are going to show you how to perform the test. On the keypad, you can find the B and D keys. With B, you can select the program to test the DRV pumps with digital signal, that is Bosch and Siemens. With D, you select the program to test the pumps with DRV valve with analogical signal, such as Delphi pumps. The test consists in the control of the maximum pressure produced by the pump. Set the pressure at 1500 bar. The injection time at 1 millisecond and the RPM at 500. The duration of the test must be around 1 minute. If the pump works properly, the pressure values read on the display during the test has to be over 1200 bar. The pump's test must be performed with 4 efficient injectors mounted on the bench. The test cannot be performed without. Some types of common rail systems have not the DRV valve installed on the pump, but on the rail.